Hey, it's Vas here from Aussie RC Playground and welcome to my review of the ARRMA Nero 6S BLX. And now this is of course 1/8 scale. It's a four-wheel drive monster truck. It's brushless. It can run on 6S. In fact, I highly recommend that you do run this one on 6S. And it can be quite fast. As you can see here, the ARRMA FAZON. It's essentially the same truck, but this one has got a completely different body on it, different tires, slightly different setup. And with the right gearing, you can in fact hit 100 kilometers an hour, which is about 62 miles an hour, just as I did with the high-speed Pinion gear. It did it quite easily. In fact, it wasn't too hard. I managed to back that up a couple of times. A little bit harder with the Nero. Didn't quite get there as far as speed goes, but still has plenty of power and it's capable of doing a lot, considering it has the locking diffs. Now, of course, you can get this truck without the locking diffs if that is something that is not really interesting to you. Then you can get the one that has the green body, which is this guy here, and that comes without the locking diffs. And of course, if you do choose to maybe put the locking diffs on later on, you do have the option to do that. ARRMA do sell that as a kit. So let's talk about the truck a little bit. Because this review is probably going to be a little bit long and I do want to sort of cover off a few things. We're going to start this off with the electrics, as I always do. Now, for the electrics, I've actually given this one a 4 out of 5. Reason being because I think the electrics are totally fine. I know that a lot of people there seem to be complaining about the servo not being good enough and all this, and yes, I do agree the servo is a little bit slow, which is the reason why I've given it a 4 out of 5, not a 5 out of 5. But the locking servos haven't given me any issues at all. The ESC has been totally fine, and the motor is nice and strong and has plenty of grunt to push this, I think it's like 6 kilogram truck wherever it is that you want it to go. So it's quite a heavy vehicle, and the power system that they've included and all the servos are actually doing a very good job, at least from my experience. Remember, this is a review based on the experience that I have with the vehicle, and this particular vehicle hasn't given me any troubles as far as the electrics go. Moving on to the drivetrain, pretty solid drivetrain. Haven't had any issues with the diffs or anything like that. Bearings have been totally fine as well. I haven't had any problems with them. And I've had the truck now for about 6 months. I've ran it plenty of times. I've rebuilt the whole thing, torn the whole truck down, put it all back together. I didn't need to change any of the bearings back then, and I still haven't changed any of them now. The only thing that I had to kind of fix up on this one was the cross pins that go from the outdrives of the diffs and hold the actual drive shafts in place. Those pins tend to break. I've broken one. I know my friend Phil, who has the Nero and now has the Big Rock as well, he's also broken 1 or 2 of them, and I've seen a few other people out there online who break these quite on a regular basis. Now, that's something that I think perhaps ARRMA need to kind of look at in the future and strengthen that particular component, at least in the drivetrain. But aside from that, I haven't had any issues anywhere else. That's been the only thing that I've had problems with. So, given the reliability and durability of the drivetrain, I've given this one a 4 out of 5 as well. Now, moving on to handling. Now, this one here, as far as handling goes, I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5. And I know some of you may agree with me, some of you may disagree with me, but here's the thing. When I got this truck, having the F1 style lay down shocks that has been around for so many years, with the cantilevers and everything, I was expecting a really nice plush ride. I was expecting this to handle somewhat differently from what I actually got. And the truck doesn't handle bad. It does handle quite fine. I just had a slightly different expectation of it, and I've been fiddling around with the suspension, trying to get it to do what I want it to do, and I still haven't got there. It handles fine as it is, don't get me wrong, but it just doesn't. I had a different impression of it, I guess. The only way that I can really compare these two to kind of give you an idea of what I was expecting more of a Summit style of handling. I was expecting something more plush that would just soak up jumps and bumps and everything else, and instead I got a fairly stiff ride. The truck unsettled it quite a bit over some small bumps. It bottomed out quite heavily over some big jumps. Of course, it is a very heavy truck. So I think the suspension needs to be tweaked a little bit. I don't know what ARRMA can do to make it that much better. Perhaps the Big Rock, which I haven't driven yet. I know you guys have probably seen an unboxing of the Big Rock here on my channel. That's not my truck. I'm yet to drive it to really see if that truck is actually doing what I expected the Nero to do. So if ARRMA had every intention for the Nero to handle the way that it is, and that's what they aimed for, then I guess, you know, if that is something that you're happy with, then I guess, you know, your score will definitely be different here. I was just expecting something a little bit more plush, a little bit more Summit-like, I guess, and I just didn't get it with this particular truck. It's a little bit stiff. So that's why I've given it a 3 out of 5. Okay, so now we're going to move on to durability. Now, there are a few things here that I think ARRMA need to address, and we're going to start off with the plastic rod ends on these rocker arms. These break quite easily. It doesn't take a lot for you to break them. The odd awkward landing will be enough to kind of stress them and break them off. They're just a little bit too thin and a bit too fragile, and I think they need to be addressed. Now, ARRMA have done this with the ARRMA FAZON, and I think the Big Rock also have these upgraded rod ends. They're a lot beefier, a little bit thicker as well. You can just tell that they've definitely improved them, and that's a good thing, and I think the Nero needs to have the same treatment. I don't know if the new shipments of the Nero already have these upgrades on there, but if they don't, I highly recommend that you perhaps get them as spares, or that ARRMA, of course, you know, do the same thing with the Nero as they've done with the FAZON. The other issue you're probably likely to have are going to be the rocker posts. Now, I had a very hard nose landing with the Nero very early on in my driving, and I broke both rocker posts clean off. And that's really because they're kind of hollow. So the bit that goes into the bulkhead is nice and solid. That's a threaded part of the post. And then the post that sticks out and where your actual rocker goes onto, that is hollow, and of course, you know, a nice hard hit was enough to snap them both off. I did do a mod on my Nero by using the Traxxas ones. You do need to bore out the hole a little bit bigger in order to fit them on, because the thread on the Traxxas rocker posts from the E-Revo and the Summit, they're a little bit thicker, and you also need to shave off a little bit of that post because it's just a tad too tall. And what would happen is, if I'd left it as it was, it's probably at 0.5 millimeter too big, to be honest, and the rocker would sort of move ever so slightly. So I shaved it off just a little bit, just enough. You'd be very careful not to take too much off, and I'll manage to screw it back in, and it worked perfectly. And they're a slightly better design. I don't know if ARRMA have modified their existing posts, but I know that there may be some upgraded ones coming out very soon through GKA, and I'll probably be upgrading mine, at least the rear ones. I might do it on the FAZON as well, just in case things go a little bit wrong, and at least I have that protection there. The other thing that I'm going to knock on for durability is going to be the battery doors. These battery doors look like a great idea. They open up from underneath, but I really don't see the point of opening them from underneath. You still need to take the body off in order to plug everything in, unless you can get your hands in there and awkwardly plug your batteries in somehow. But I don't really see why they've gone down this road with the battery trays. I think that they either need to come up with a better locking mechanism for this so that they don't pop open, or just do away with them altogether, because they just kind of bolt onto the side of the chassis. They just need to redesign them in some way, and have the battery doors opening up from the side or opening from the door or from the top, and just do away with this concept. Because, you know, even the FAZON that I haven't had for that long, I think on my first run with this truck, the battery doors started to pop open. I didn't mind it so much when it started happening with the Nero, because I had several runs through it, and you know, the plastics obviously started to fatigue a little bit, so I could understand the battery doors starting to open up after so many runs and so many battery packs. But on the first battery pack with the FAZON, they popped open. That just goes to show that the design or the latch that they have on here is just not up to the task, especially when the trays are so big and you're encouraged to put big heavy batteries in here. They just can't really hold them in place. So I think they need to really address this one as well. Aside from that, what else did I break on this thing? I did rip apart my, I think it was my front bumper, but that was when I was running the truck without the body, and the truck kind of flipped, and yeah, it just ripped the whole front bumper off. Can't really blame the truck for that one, and it's only held on with a couple of screws. It's a quick and easy fix. You can put it back on. I had some zip ties initially, and eventually I ended up swapping it out and just getting a whole new bumper. You can of course get what I did and get the T-Bone Racing front and rear wheelie bars, front bumper, rear wheelie bar. Now, a good thing about this is that, you know, they're very durable, but they are a little bit big. I will say that they are quite large, but very, very tough. And if you do like to, you know, give your cars a hard time, check out this T-Bone Racing gear, because I highly recommend it. It's definitely worked very well on the Nero, and you never know, I may end up getting some more T-Bone racing gear for some of my other cars. Aside from that, I did have my ESC kind of unglued from the actual chassis a few times. When I rebuilt the truck after I had that huge crash, I actually bolted it down, so I went straight through the brace that the ESC sits on, and I've screwed it in from underneath. The ESC does have 4 holes for some screws. Just make sure you use the right size screw so you don't go too far, and just bolt it down, and that's exactly what I did, and that ESC is not going anywhere. Would be nice if ARRMA would come up with a concept like that as well, and somehow bolt the ESC down, because these are rebranded Hobbywing ESCs, and if you've ever had a Hobbywing ESC, you'll know that they actually have 4 holes underneath to screw them down. So rather than constantly going through double-sided tape and try to zip tie the whole thing in, just bolt them down. It will take some time for you to do it, but you will need to disassemble a lot of the truck if you want to do what I did, to get to that particular plastic part and actually mark it out and drill it out. But once it's done, your ESC isn't going anywhere. The body itself, also a bit of an issue, very thin. This is a very heavy truck, and this is a brand new body, by the way, but the new body that I have completely tore up in the rear. Everything about it is pretty much wrecked. It's very thin. I hope that the Nero gets the same treatment as the FAZON, where they're using, I think it's 1.8 mil or 1.5 mil thickness Lexan, whilst this is I think 0.7 or 0.8 thickness. So quite a considerable difference. You're looking at about double the thickness of Lexan on this one compared to this one. And when you've got such a big heavy truck, an upside down landing or anything that sort of involves the body, it's going to take a lot of abuse, and it needs something a little bit more durable. So those are my durability issues with the Nero. Thus far, I haven't had anything else go wrong, thankfully. No bearings, no A-arms are broken, nothing like that. Everything else, you know, has been fine. So for durability, I give this one a 3 out of 5. I think that's a pretty fair score. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's great. I think ARRMA definitely have a lot of room here to improve on it. And it looks as though, going by the FAZON and the Nero, the Big Rock, they already started to improve on these vehicles without bringing out, you know, a V2 version of it. So good on them for taking the right steps, and you know, improving the cars that we love and making them more durable so that we can spend more time enjoying them rather than repairing them. Now we move on to maintenance. Now, I know that a lot of people will probably give this one a very low score because of the design of the truck, but I have to be fair here. I have to weigh up both ends of the equation, and I've given this one a 3 out of 5. So again, middle of the road, 3 out of 5 for durability, for maintenance. The reason being, because despite the fact that it is a twin vertical plate chassis and it is a very intricate design, ARRMA have actually done a really, really good job of trying to make this as easy to work on as you possibly can. So accessing your front and rear diffs are actually fairly easy to do. Doesn't take a lot of time to access those. The only one that is a little bit tricky to get to is the whole center assembly in the middle. Now there are a few screws and a few things that you need to disconnect, and you really have to pay attention to what you're doing in order to pull that whole midsection out. But they didn't do it as an afterthought. You can see that they've actually put some thought into it to try and make it as easy as possible, and I have to credit them for that. Yes, the truck is a little bit hard to work on if you're not used to it. If you don't like tinkering with your RCs, you're probably going to hate working on anything that has twin vertical plates. It's not just the Nero. If you do your research, you'll find that there's a lot of RCs out there that have twin vertical plates, and they can be a pain to work on. This one here is a little bit tricky to work on, but I think ARRMA have done a very good job of trying to facilitate the whole process for us and I can't knock them for that. So I think a middle of the road score, given the design, by inherent design, that's about as good as I can give this truck at the moment. So 3 out of 4, I think, 3 out of 5 is a very good score for this one. Moving on to part support, I'm going to give this one full marks. Some of you may disagree because depending on the area that you live in, whether that's the city that you live in doesn't have any hobby shops that stock ARRMA, or it could be the country that you live in where, you know, part support's a little bit scarce for this particular brand in general. But overall, Tower Hobbies always has parts for these. My local hobby shops, there's a couple of hobby shops near me that always have parts for them. From my perspective, from where I am, I can't knock the part support for this. A quick browse through the internet or a quick phone call to a local hobby shop, and I can have the parts in my doorstep, you know, within a couple of weeks. So I can't really knock part support at this stage. As long as ARRMA keep the stock levels high enough and they don't run out of stock, I think stock availability shouldn't be too much of an issue. So I'm going to give this one a 5 out of 5. All right, so now let's move on to value. Now with value, if I was to review this truck within a month or two of its release, I probably would not be giving it the score that I'm about to give it now. I'm actually going to give this one a 5 out of 5 for value. Now, before you throw your phones at the wall or punch your computer screen, just hear me out. $800 was the initial launch price of this truck. Now that's $799 US to be specific. Here in Australia, these retail for about $1,150, which is quite a fair amount of money, but you know, it's about the same price or maybe a little bit cheaper than the Savage. It's pretty much the same price as your e-Revo, same price as the Summit, believe it or not. That also sells for that exact same money. And I can't remember what else sells for about that much money, but that's where it's at, and it's priced very well in that market, in that sort of 6S capable monster truck madness category. Here in Australia, it's actually priced really well. In the US, it was a little bit harder to justify. You've got trucks like the Savage, which I think still retails for about $650, $700 US. You've got the e-Revo, which is about the same price. So people were like, well, you know, this is not a proven platform. Those two are. Why would this be so much more and all of this? But you got to look at what it offers. What it offers is you've got independent locking diffs that you can, you know, pretty much do via the remote on the fly. Slow the truck down a little bit, switch your locking modes, and you've got different driving experiences. Locking all the diffs turns it into a little bit of a crawler. If you just lock the center and rear, you turn it into a bit of a drift machine. Although I've never really mastered that part of it. I don't use that one too much. What I do like is the wheelie mode where you just lock the center diff. And this becomes a very responsive truck, especially around corners, because you're throwing a lot of even power between front and rear wheels, and it's also very handy for when you're doing speed runs. So you're not bleeding a lot of power to the front, you're really making the front and rear wheels spin pretty much the same speed, and that gives you your maximum top speed. That's the way that you can achieve it. So it does have that function. Now you might think, oh yeah, but the Summit does that too. Yes, but the Summit is brushed. This can go 60 miles an hour or just about. I didn't quite get there with this one. I did get there with this one. But you know, that's the advantage that this has. But even so, at that price, I know that a lot of people kind of struggle to justify it. Now, on the Tower Hobbies website, if you're smart enough and you're quick enough, you can actually find the Nero, whether it's this one or the green version, on sale pretty much all the time. As I'm recording this right now, we are a couple of days away from Christmas 2016, and I've seen the green Nero go for, I think, $499 US on the Tower Hobbies website. That is madness for a truck that originally came out priced, I think it was $699, whilst this one was $799. So quite a huge difference in price. And even this one, I think I've seen it for $599 or $699 or something like that. So still a very affordable truck, and it doesn't have that big price gap between the Kraton and where these are at right now. I think ARRMA have definitely made it a lot more affordable. Whether it was ARRMA's doing or Hobbyco's or Tower Hobbies, I don't know. I don't know the ins and outs of that, but it becomes a lot more affordable when you see something like that, and you have yourself a very strong truck, a very heavy truck, mind you, that is capable of a lot at a very good, reasonable price. And that's why I'm going to give this one a 5 out of 5, because it does so much, and it does a decent job at pretty much everything that it does. But at the price point that it is right now, and I've seen this constantly on sale at Tower Hobby's website, even for $1,150 here in Australia, this is still an excellent truck to get, and something that I think, if you want an RC that's a little bit different from the norm, that you are able to do something different with it, this might be something worth looking at. It's not everybody's cup of tea. I've read the comments, I've heard a lot of people mention, this just doesn't do it for me, it doesn't interest me. Totally fine. Whilst I've had a lot of people say, I cannot wait to get my own, I think this is perfect. And it really depends on what you want out of the RC. That's why there's so many different ones from all different brands, offering you slightly different experiences and different things that you can do with them. So if you do like this truck, go and check it out. Now the total score for this one is a 27 out of a potential 35, which is 77% out of 100, which isn't bad. Definitely a bit of room for improvement here. I think that ARRMA need to improve on the durability side of things. I think the battery trays is probably one of the most annoying things about this truck. They just keep popping open. Well, they do enough. They pop open enough to become annoying, I guess is what I'm trying to say. That is it for my review of the ARRMA Nero 6S BLX. Be sure to check this one out on the Tower Hobbies website. Check out your local hobby shops as well. I'll have a link in the description for the Tower Hobbies website if you want to go get some more technical specs on it, get some more pricing of what it's worth currently. Of course, there's also the FAZON and of course the Big Rock, which offer slightly different driving experiences, and they're kind of aimed at different applications whilst using the same chassis. That is it from me. If you enjoyed this review, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you are new here, don't forget to subscribe, and I will be speaking to you guys next time.